What if there was a way to restore the cells in your body to a more youthful state and actually bring back optimal function to old cells? This is where the field of longevity starts to sound like science fiction. I'm talking about stem cell therapies and the field of regenerative medicine, using new techniques that appear to be from the future. In today's video, we're going to be talking about regenerative medicine. Now, regenerative medicine is actually a pretty new field, and it's all about restoring damaged cells or tissues to a healthy state. In fact, regenerative medicine has been defined as the process of replacing, engineering, or regenerating human cells, tissues, or organs to restore or establish normal function, or healthy function. And the primary tool of practitioners of the science are stem cells and exosomes. So in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at what both stem cells and exosomes are, how they can restore tissue, why regenerative medicine might be something worth looking at with regard to defeating the aging process. And finally, we'll take a look at a couple of regenerative medicine clinics for some examples of what's going on in the field right now, today. And let's start with stem cells. These are the most basic cells that every other cell in our body grew out of. When a sperm cell implants a human egg cell, the first stem cell is created. Now this cell starts dividing or differentiating and eventually differentiates into all the different types of tissue in our bodies. As they move along the spectrum from a stem cell that can become any other type of cell to a somatic cell, or literally body cell, that is highly specific and has lost the ability to become any other type of cell, they lose potency. An embryonic cell that has the potential to become any type of cell is called pluripotent. A stem cell that has differentiated enough that it can now only become a certain class of cells is called multipotent. Examples of multipotent stem cells are mesenchymal stem cells, which can become bone, cartilage, muscle, and fat cells, and hematopoietic stem cells, which can differentiate into platelets and into red and white blood cells. A progenitor cell has the least amount of potency, and it can only become one type of cell. For example, a satellite cell is a type of progenitor cell that can only become muscle tissue. Now, stem cells basically have three jobs. The first job is to proliferate and make more of themselves. They do this by undergoing mitosis and replicating themselves using cell division. The second job is to differentiate, to become whatever type of tissue they're supposed to become. This is important because different types of tissue cells have different lifespans, from a few days to your whole life. Now, on average, most cells will die and be replaced every 7 to 10 years. And how are they replaced? By progenitor stem cells differentiating into the cell that can replace the dying cell. So most of the tissue in your body undergoes a constant process of cells dying out and being replaced by stem cells. But stem cells have a third job, to secrete chemical signals that can ignite cellular repair processes. So most stem cells not only replace dying cells, they can repair and rejuvenate unhealthy cells, restoring them to a healthy state. These chemical signals are released into the extracellular environment in the form of membrane-bound vesicles called EVs, or extracellular vesicles. Now, EVs are part of the intracellular communications network, where chemical signals are released and picked up by cells all over the body. And altered intracellular communications is one of the hallmarks of aging, and they can have a huge impact on how well you age. Chemical signaling can either degrade cellular function, like through inflammation, or improve function, as in the case of exosomes. So exosomes are extracellular vesicles that are secreted by stem cells, and they contain proteins, DNA, and RNA capable of igniting repair processes in damaged cells. So as you can see, keeping up a healthy supply of stem cells is critical if you want to stave off the aging process. But since stem cells undergo damage throughout their lifespan, this means that repair processes that stem cells undergo are equally critical. So let's take a look at this damage. Stem cell damage can accumulate over time for three reasons. First, any unrepaired damage to stem cells gets passed on. If a stem cell is damaged and that damage doesn't get repaired, that damage can get passed on to daughter cells when stem cells proliferate, and to future daughter cells on down the line. Next, damage to stem cells can accumulate if the rate of damage goes up. And a lot of stresses, both internal and external, can cause the rate of stem cell damage to climb. But damage to stem cells can also accumulate if the rate of repair goes into decline. Now, here's the thing. While damage can happen throughout the life of stem cells, not so with repair. Stem cells are dormant for most of their life, living in a state of quiescence. And stem cells do not undergo repair when they're in a state of quiescence. Repair functions only happen once the stem cell is activated, once they enter the cell cycle. Now, when stem cells are young, this is fine. But when they get older, damage has been building up for a long time. And when that's combined with declining repair functions, stem cells can cross a threshold where there's just too much damage to repair. Instead of being repaired, the stem cell dies, and the pool of stem cells just got smaller. And this is stem cell exhaustion. As the pool of stem cells gets smaller and smaller, there's not as many stem cells to proliferate, not as many stem cells to differentiate and replace dying somatic cells, and not as many stem cells to secrete exosomes. So, what's the answer? What can we do to improve our pool of stem cells? Now, there are several strategies available. Since improving upstream hallmarks will improve downstream hallmarks, and since stem cell exhaustion is at the very end of the chain of hallmarks, improving just about any other hallmark will have a beneficial effect on stem cell exhaustion. Boosting the epigenome by improving DNA methylation will help. So will boosting our NAD+ levels, which will improve production of ATP and activate sirtuins, enhancing the mitochondria. You could fast, which ignites autophagy, or you could clear out senescent cells with senolytics, improving inflammation. Or you could give your stem cells a shot in the arm by utilizing stem cell therapies that are available in a number of clinics. So today, I'm going to talk about a couple of those clinics, just to give you an idea of different therapies that are available. Now, neither of these clinics are sponsoring this video, and I'm not an affiliate of either one. Just to be clear, I have been producing some educational content for one of them, but neither one is paying me any money to do this video. The first of the clinics that I'll be talking about is Dossier Clinics in Park City, Utah. They're run by Dr. Harry Adelson, and this is where Dave Asprey, the biohacker of Bulletproof Coffee fame, has undergone stem cell therapy. The other clinic is the Regenerative Medicine Institute, with clinics in Montclair, New Jersey, Houston, Texas, Miami, and in San Jose, Costa Rica. RMI is run by Dr. Vincent Giampapa, who has twice been nominated for a Nobel for his work in stem cells. Now, each of these clinics do things a little differently, which is why I picked these two examples, just to show you some different approaches to stem cell therapy. Let's start with how the stem cells are collected or harvested. At Dossier, as I understand it, they draw off some bone marrow from the hip bones, and the stem cells are harvested from that. They collect primarily mesenchymal stem cells. Now, I believe that they also used to extract some adipose tissue and harvest adipose-derived mesenchymal stem cells, but I don't think they do that any longer. At RMI, they do things a little differently. First, they put you on a round of senolytics for about a week to remove the senescent cells that accelerate the aging process. These senolytics are dasatinib plus quercetin and fisetin. Then they put you on a 3-day course of a drug called Neupogen. This drug causes newly formed stem cells in your bone marrow to become activated and to enter your bloodstream. Then they hook you up to an apheresis machine, which extracts blood from one arm, filters out the stem cells, and then returns the other portions of your blood back into the other arm. At RMI, they harvest mesenchymal, hematopoietic, and endothelial stem cells three types of stem cells that are normally present in large numbers when you're a young, healthy adult. Okay, so what do they do with these stem cells once they've collected them? Again, there's some differences between dossier and RMI. First off, let me say that at dossier, it's mostly done in a single session, both the collection and the reinfusion. Now, typically, one is sedated, then they collect the stem cells, and then there's about a 45-minute period where the mesenchymal stem cells are prepared. Then they have a couple of doctors who are working side by side to inject the stem cells back into various parts of your body. They can inject the mesenchymal stem cells back into almost every joint: your elbows, your shoulders, your wrists and thumbs, your hips and knees and ankles, and your great toe. They can inject the stem cells into your entire spine, from the base of your skull all the way down to your tailbone, on both sides. Now, apparently, this is particularly effective in people who have dehydrated lumbar discs. They can inject the stem cells into either the penile tissue or vaginal tissue to regenerate sexual performance. And they can inject stem cells into the face, the neck, and scalp to regenerate the aesthetics of younger-looking skin and to regrow balding hair. Now, dossier has been doing this in the past primarily as a treatment for chronic pain, but they've developed a procedure that they call the full-body stem cell makeover that is more of a preventative treatment aimed at longevity. And this is the procedure that Dave Asprey underwent. Again, at RMI, they do things a little bit differently. After the three types of stem cells are collected, they place all three types of these cells into cryopreservation after collection. And this only needs to be done one time in your whole life. Here, the aging process is suspended until the stem cells are needed. So a lot of younger people go down to RMI to have their stem cells preserved for later in life when they might really need them, like after an injury. But what about if you're older and you have old stem cells? Well, RMI has a process, a proprietary process, that they call cell restoration. This process is only performed on stem cells that have been collected from older patients, and that includes anyone over the age of about 60. And the goal of the cell restoration process is to restore these older, damaged stem cells to a state similar to the youthful stem cells collected from younger people. The older stem cells are combined in a special culturing technique with healthy young adult stem cells that are collected from donors. Using chemical signals, exosomes and segments of DNA from the young adult stem cells are able to restore the gene activity of the older stem cells, returning these older stem cells to a much more youthful functional state. Now, this process takes about 10 days. These restored stem cells are then placed back into cryopreservation. About 6 months to a year later, some of the stem cells are defrosted and used to replace the decreasing number of stem cells in these older patients. And this process can then continue on a yearly basis. So in the case of RMI, you would benefit both from having the older dormant stem cells in your body tissues reactivated, but also from having the restored younger functioning stem cells infused back into your body. Now, one thing I do need to mention. My understanding is that while it's legal within the US to collect stem cells, you can't inject them back into your own body, except for very limited indications. The FDA has approved the reinfusion of stem cells into a person's body mainly to restore their immune function after cancer therapy. The processes that RMI performs on the stem cells, that is, the collection, storage, and reinfusion of your own stem cells for anti-aging purposes, is not approved in the US. And that's even though the exact same process has been used for decades for cancer patients and used with much success and safety. Although the stem cell restoration process at RMI is not yet approved in the US, animal studies have demonstrated 30% extension of maximal lifespans and health spans in the animals studied. Now, it's unknown when or if this therapy will be approved in the US. That's the reason why RMI maintains a state-of-the-art clinic in Costa Rica, where it's able to do this therapy legally, as well as other stem cell therapy treatments and advanced research studies. Regenerative medicine is currently in its infancy. In both the next few years and over the long term, we'll be seeing some huge advances in this field as it matures. It's still in a stage or it's not for everybody. My feeling is that not enough is known about the long-term effects to make it perfectly safe for everyone yet. But there are some people for whom time is running out. And a lot of these people are willing to take the calculated risk, along with the benefits, that undergoing stem cell therapy just might entail. And you know what? I just might be one of those people. So stay tuned for further updates. If you enjoyed this video, then you might want to watch this early video that I did on stem cell exhaustion. That's it for me. I'm out of here. Catch you next time.